Epic listicles. Epic listicles. Cops that were also killers. Hello, I'm Angela, and this is Epic Listicles. These are 10 cops that were also killers. Number 10, Craig Payee. Craig Payee was a California Highway Patrol officer that abused his authority by often pulling women over for the purpose of hitting on them. On December 27, 1986, Payee pulled over San Diego State University student Kara Knott, age 20. When Kara rebuffed Payee's advances, he bludgeoned, strangled, and threw the young student's body from a bridge, all while on duty. He finished his shift like nothing happened. Payee was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole and maintains his innocence to this day. Number 9, Sidney Dorsey. Sidney Dorsey was the first black sheriff for DeKalb County in Georgia. During his tenure, there were many accusations of corruption on a multitude of levels. Dorsey was defeated in a runoff in 2000 by Derwin Brown. Brown ran on a platform with a promise to clean house. Brown beat Dorsey, and 12 days after taking his oath of office, Derwin Brown was murdered as a result of the orders of Sidney Dorsey. Dorsey now sits in the Georgia State Prison with numerous concurrent sentences, including life for murder. Number 8, Manuel Pardo. Manuel Pardo was a one-time Florida State Highway Patrolman. He was fired from one law enforcement agency, but later hired by another. After making a false statement in an international trial, Pardo was again fired from being a cop. In early 1986, Pardo then embarked on a 92-day crime spree that included the murders of 6 men and 3 women. Pardo was convicted in part based on his own confessions made in a journal he kept, found along with clippings from the murders and a Nazi memorabilia collection. Number 7, Antoinette Frank. On her first application to the New Orleans Police Department, Antoinette was caught lying several times and failed the standardized psych evaluation twice and did not get hired. Given a second chance to apply, this time the NOPD opted to hire her. While on patrol, Frank was known to be friendly with a local drug dealer, Roger Lacaze, including letting him drive her department-issued squad car on several occasions. On March 4, 1995, Frank and her drug dealer boyfriend Lacaze robbed a restaurant Frank moonlighted at as a security guard. The robbery resulted in the murder of 2 members of the family that owned the restaurant and a fellow NOPD officer, Ronald A. Williams. Antoinette Frank was sentenced to death for her role in this crime. Lacaze, the boyfriend/drug dealer, was originally sentenced to death, but then retried on a technicality and now serves life in prison. Number 6, Drew Peterson. Drew Peterson was a Bolingbrook, Illinois police officer for 38 years. He was married a total of 4 times. Peterson's third wife, Kathleen Salvo, was found dead just a few months after her divorce from Peterson in 2003. At the time, the death was ruled as an accidental drowning. Her body was found in a dry bathtub covered in bruises, with a large gash in her head. It wasn't until Peterson's 4th wife, Stacy Ann Cales Peterson, went missing that suspicions were raised about the death of Kathleen Salvo. Her body was exhumed and a second autopsy was performed, and signs of a struggle were found. Kathleen Salvo's cause of death was ruled as a homicide, and Drew Peterson was charged and convicted. After being convicted of Kathleen's death, Peterson then attempted to put a contract on the state's attorney. He was also convicted of this crime while in prison. In total, Peterson will be sentenced to 78 years in prison. Number 5, Christopher Dorner. Christopher Dorner graduated from the LAPD Police Academy in 2006 and was then deployed by the Navy Reserve for active duty. When Dorner returned to the LAPD in 2007, he began training as a rookie with training officer Teresa Evans. After a performance review that Evans noted 3 areas Dorner needed improvement in, Dorner filed a report accusing Evans of using excessive force on a call. After investigating, it was found Dorner filed a false report and he was fired from the LAPD. In early 2013, Dorner made a social media post he referred to as a manifesto. In the post, he named 40 law enforcement related personnel that he was prepared to kill. Dorner embarked on a killing spree that left 4 dead and 3 wounded. During a long manhunt across 3 states, Dorner was located in a cabin in the San Bernardino Mountains. After a long standoff with law enforcement, the cabin caught fire from tear gas canisters and Dorner was later found dead. It is worth noting that during the manhunt for Dorner, police shot 3 civilians in 2 separate instances because of mistaken identity. Number 4 and 3, Stephen Caracappa and Louis Eppolito. Caracappa and Eppolito were NYPD detectives that moonlighted on behalf of the Lucchese and Gambino crime families. After starting as footmen and working their ways up through the NYPD, Caracappa and Eppolito were partnered together. Eppolito was the son of a Gambino associate. When he was hired by the NYPD, he falsely omitted this relationship to the crime family. Although it appears that both cops avoided corruption for a number of years, and they finally gave in to the money the mob was willing to pay. The NYPD detectives lied in court cases, provided information about ongoing cases, delivered wanted associates, and executed on behalf of organized crime. Both were sent to prison with sentences greater than 80 years. Caracappa died of cancer in prison in 2017, and Eppolito died in prison of undisclosed causes in 2019. Number 2, Gerard John Schaefer. After being fired for inappropriate behavior as a teacher and being turned down for the priesthood and a failed marriage, suspected serial killer George John Schaefer applied for and was hired as a deputy for the Martins County Sheriff's Department in Stuart, Florida. While on the job in 1972, Schaefer picked up 2 teenage girls hitchhiking. After befriending them and convincing them to meet him the next day, Schaefer drove the girls to a swampy area in Hutchinson Island. He then tied them to a tree and told them how he was going to force them into human trafficking. Schaefer got a police call and had to leave the girls. They escaped and reported Schaefer. He was fired and charged with false imprisonment and 2 counts of aggravated assault. While Schaefer was on bond, 2 other girls went missing. When the bodies were discovered, a statement one of the missing girls' parents gave to police came to light, revealing she was going to play guitar with Gary Schaefer. Soon a search warrant was issued and the search discoveries were made, linking Schaefer to at least 8 other missing girls. Hundreds of pages of sketches of women in various stages of torture, newspaper clippings about missing girls, IDs that belonged to 2 other missing hitchhikers. Schaefer was given 2 life sentences and 15 years later had his throat cut and his eyes stabbed out when murdered in prison. In all, it is believed that Schaefer is responsible for as many as 30 murders. Number 1, Joseph James Dangelo is famously known as the Golden State Killer and the original Night Stalker. Dangelo was actually responsible for 3 separate crime sprees across California from 1973 to 1986. Dangelo was not caught or charged with any crimes until 2018. Most people believe Dangelo was able to evade capture for at least 13 murders, more than 50 rapes, and 120 burglaries across 3 separate law enforcement jurisdictions because of his experience as a police officer. Dangelo earned a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and continued his police education with a 32-week police internship at the Roseville Police Department. Dangelo then went on to become a burglary detective in Executor until 1976. Dangelo then served in law enforcement in Auburn until he was arrested and convicted of shoplifting a hammer and dog repellent. It is unknown what he did for a living during the 80s, but through the 90s and into the new millennium, he worked as a truck mechanic. It was the use of genetic genealogy that the police were finally able to narrow the suspects down to Dangelo. On April 24, 2018, Dangelo was arrested and charged with 8 counts of first-degree murder. with special circumstances. Dangelo made a confession to a degree in custody and ultimately made a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. He pled guilty to 13 murders with special circumstances and was sentenced to several life sentences without parole and is currently incarcerated in California. Thank you for watching Epic Listicles. See you next time.